All right, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns and what lies ahead this offseason in terms of free agency and all of that stuff, because they're in an interesting spot at this point. I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, last year they've had such high expectations that Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year, they win a playoff game and nearly knock off the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. So who knows what happens if they win that football game. There was a lot to like about Cleveland heading into this year. I mean, on paper, they were maybe the best team in football, it seemed like, heading into this year, and then it all just falls apart in the regular. I wouldn't say it all falls apart, but things did not go well. So where did it go from here? What's their free agency situation looking like, and how can they improve on their flaws and all of that stuff while trying to maintain, because they actually have some guys they have to keep. So first, let's just get into all that, the free agency and how much cap space they have. So as you see, what you see on the screen is, the Browns cap space situation, $34 million, and then the number you see next to each of these players, this is their how much PFF is expecting them to make in free agency. That's their projections. So two key guys, really, Jadeveon Clowney and David Njoku, both projecting to get over $10 million a year. Clowney $15 million, and Njoku would be $13 million. So now you could tag one of those guys, like specifically the tight end tag is actually very cheap, so that might be a move to do that. So that's an option on the table. The franchise tag, always something that these teams can work with. You also do have Ronnie Harrison, who, if you remember, the Jaguars basically just gave the Browns, like, hey, you want like a solid safety for nothing, back when the Jaguars were tanking, and the Browns said, yeah, sure, we'll take that. And so now he's a free agent. But, $5 million for a solid safety, like, I think that'd be worth holding on to. I don't know if I would just run him out of town. Like, I think I'd probably keep him. Rashard Higgins, if that's truly his cap hit at just $2 million, probably worth keeping as well. He might not be a star or anything like that, but hey, you hang on to Higgins. He knows the system, all of that stuff. You also have, I might mispronounce his first name, Takaris McKinley here as an edge guy who, especially if they keep Clowney, you're probably not going to, you might not hang on to him. You might let someone else take him. Not a huge cap hit, though. So if you want to hang on to him, you could. Like, again, that's kind of one of those, and whatever option you choose. You also have Anthony Walker, who was a good safety for them last year. I thought their safety play as a whole last year was pretty good. So in $44 million, that's again probably worth hanging on to. So if they wanted to re-sign everybody here, they would need $43 million, and since they have they would need $43 million, and since they have $34 in cap space, they'd have to clear $9 million. Now, here's some players that they could cut if they want to. Also, apologies if you hear some banging going on in the background. My microphone's pretty good at taking this stuff out, but my upstairs neighbors are just, for whatever reason, playing their TV ridiculously loud. Don't know why I didn't need to do that, but whatever. I do also talk loudly into a microphone for as long as I do, as many hours as a day. So apartment living is what it is. But anyways, yeah, here are some players that they could cut, and there's actually some key names here. Whereas usually the guys they could cut, it's kind of like, oh hey, you could save $4 million by cutting this guy that you've probably never heard of. That's kind of how it works. No, these are guys you've all probably heard of. Jarvis Landry is the big one. He would save $15 million. Now, Jarvis Landry obviously has done a lot of good stuff. He's been a very valuable player for the Browns for quite some time now, but is he still that guy? That's what remains to be seen. And if you could save $15 million and use that to sign someone else, a free agent who might be better off, that might be the move you want to make. He is, 29 at this point, so he's not old, but maybe you're concerned about that. It's a decision they have to make. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't cut him, but that's certainly, it's on the table. When they're looking at this stuff, they're going to pay attention to that. You also have Case Keenum, who, I don't know. If Case Keenum is getting $7 million, or if you're not going to take the $7 million to cut Case Keenum, you have to heavily consider that he might be a starter at some point. And last year, when Baker Mayfield was clearly not 100%, he was still out there, and it makes you wonder, why are we giving Case Keenum all this money if he's not going to play anyways? To me, I say okay, I get the value of having a backup quarterback. There is legitimate value in that. Yes, it's very unlikely that you'll win a Super Bowl if your starting quarterback goes out, but you might lose your starting quarterback for 5 games, and if that happens, then you're going to want a backup quarterback who can come in and play decently well. And, he did come in and play decently well when he was out there this season. And also like Kareem Hunt, who, I mean, listen, Kareem Hunt's a very good player. There's no denying that his talent is there, but the question becomes, you have Dearness Johnson, who's, he was really good when he had playing time, and you have Nick Chubb, who obviously we know is great. So do you save the $6 million by getting rid of him? It's an option on the table. It's something you can consider. I think really what it comes down to is, well, if you need that $6 million to get someone else, then sure, that's where it becomes a real conversation. But also, don't just get rid of him to save the money. Like, get rid of him to use it on something else. Finally, that thing at the bottom, Baker Mayfield saves $18 million if traded, 0 if cut. So if you cut him, you're not saving anything. But if you trade him, you are getting $18 million, and that is kind of something we have to talk about, is the Baker Mayfield of it all. And do you get rid of Baker Mayfield, or do you keep him? I mean, the reality is he wasn't great last year, but the flip side is if he ends up being back to what we've seen, which is like a solid starting quarterback, which we saw when he was, last time we saw him healthy, if you believe that's who he truly is, and the injury was what happened last year, which caused his play to dip, well, getting a solid quarterback on an $18 million deal is pretty good. So, like, you'll take that. But if you didn't want to upgrade at the quarterback position, there's been some speculation about like a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan type move. You probably would have to get rid of Mayfield to do so, and so you'd have to trade him, which a team would certainly trade for Baker Mayfield. He's a positive asset at $18 million. Someone would take that deal. So now here, what you're going to see is you see that this is where they ranked in PFF grade at each positional category last year. So passing game, as we talked about, not great. How much of that was injury? That's the question. Offensive line was good, but the receiving core also regressed and did not do what we thought it would. We thought it would be great. Obviously, the Odell Beckham Jr. thing didn't work out. Jarvis Landry didn't perform what we've seen him perform before, so that's not ideal, and you would like to see that better. So, it's a good tight end play. You have that going for you, so that matters. And even some solid, like Donovan Peoples-Jones is good, but could they use quite frankly, they could use an Odell Beckham Jr. That's what they could use, but obviously that didn't work out. So that's an area they're going to have to improve upon, be it through free agency, which there are some key guys there, or maybe through the draft. The running game, very good. We know that. And the defense was very good. I mean, run defense was okay, but like pass rush, 8th best, and coverage was best in football. Like their defense they have the tools. Now, one issue, of course, is coverage tends to be pretty fluky year to year. Sometimes coverage will be very good, and then a year later it sucks, even like all the same guys are there. Like we saw that with Washington, where if anything, they improved the talent level into coverage, and it got way worse. So that's kind of always the question mark, but at least on paper, you don't have to do too much to improve the coverage unit. So yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's a lot to like about this Browns roster, but there are some clear holes that they have to take advantage of and they have to pay attention to. And if they don't really make a key focus onto those holes in the roster, this is going to be a repeat of last year, which is like an inconsistent team that at times looks really good, at times looks really bad, and doesn't make the playoffs again. So the real hope is just that if Baker Mayfield is the 14th best quarterback in football, we're fine. Things are okay. It's not a big deal. You improve the receiving core, the rest of the roster is fine, and we're good. But that's an if, and that's a question. So what did they do this free agency? Remains to be seen, but I find it fascinating. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.